All right, top of the morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. Um, yeah. So welcome back. What do we got today? We got progress is in the pursuit. So I was thinking about serendipity and my head injury, and how as a child I had amazing faith, but I lost that somewhere. Maybe I've always had it subconsciously, but I feel like my faith was stronger as a child. And it's like, was it faith or was it something else? But it had to have been faith, right? Because I was allowing, I was just living life and not trying to control anything. I was a kid, a child, you know? The good old days. Rent was free, food was free, not a worry in the world, right? Just get your chores done and be back by bedtime. But then I had my head injury. So I was doing backflips off a ladder, landed on a rock head first, or at least that's what I think happened. I can't remember. But it's what, looking back, it's what makes sense. I think after a while, some stuff came back to me. I think I remember landing the first backflip, then tried it again, and on the second one, yeah, no bueno. I didn't land that one, if you know what I'm saying. Landed it on my head. So, but either way, it took me out of the game. They brought me back. God brought me back, I should say. But you know, as a 14-year-old, that experience had a big impact on my life. And as a young child, I remember there were many nights where I just always had this hollow feeling in my stomach. And I was just so afraid of death. And I'm sure that's common for most children, but that followed me until I had my head injury. And I was probably a timid, scared child. And I was fat. People made fun of me to an extent. Everyone, after my head injury, everyone was nice to me, right? Of course. They're like, oh, shit. But whatever. But so I'm wondering if that had something to do with my faith too, though, because it was hard for me to fit in anywhere. But God always gave me that place to belong. Huh. So, anyways, back to my head injury. So, I was afraid of death. That followed me until I had my head injury. And then after dying or whatever, being told I was dead and coming back, I had to learn to get my legs working again because of atrophy. No bueno. Like, those legs did not work. I was, I barely remember bits and blips and pieces of it, but the nurses would always yell at me because I'd be like trying to ride wheelies in my wheelchair in the hospital, and all the old timers, would get all uppity about it. Oh, that young punk, blah, blah, blah. Some of them enjoyed it, but you know how it is. It's the ones that are miserable want to complain about everything. So I got my legs working again after a while. I did my physical therapy. Mental rehab was the toughest, man. Because, man, my brain just didn't work at all. It was like, meh, which I guess really that's paradise, right? My big brain wasn't getting in my way. And, yeah, I was pretty happy at that time, and I just never recognized it for what it was, but... So back then, I just had faith through the whole ordeal. There wasn't one moment where I thought I wasn't going to make it. I just was. I wasn't tripping on the future. I wasn't regretting my past. Like, why did I do that? Why did I do this? I wasn't tripping on my future. Like, oh, am I never really going to think right again? No, I just was. And there wasn't one moment in that year 8 months, 9 months in rehab. It was like, so I was in a coma for 3 days, then like ICU for 2 weeks, and then, I was in my bed for another month, and then I had like 8 months of rehab. I missed my whole sophomore year. And yeah, but I was a pretty smart cookie, so I didn't get held back or nothing because my grades kept up. But whatever. But yeah, so I had to get my brain working again anyways. And, they'd like put me in a room and shine these bright lights, and I'd have to like hit these buttons, and they'd check my reaction time, and then, they'd ask me all these questions, and I honestly don't remember a whole lot of it. But yeah, it just was. But now I feel like as an adult, we get so programmed to worry and try to control everything. I'm not saying just throw it all out the wind and be like, woo, let's see what happens. No. There are things we have to do, but there's a difference between doing what you have to do and trying to control everything. I feel the same concept resonates a lot with trying to deal with people we think are weird or odd. Because, where I look odd to other people, maybe they're the weird one. You know what I mean? Just because I look odd in everyone else's eyes, they all look weird in my eyes, So it's all just perspective. It's what you know. It's who you are. And in the end, I like weird. I like different, as long as they're not like into evil stuff. So rather than trying to control my environment, always use your discernment. Always use your discernment. But maybe I need to have a little more faith. Maybe those weird ones, those people, they have taught me the most. They have the most to teach sometimes. And maybe that's why God brings them into my life. Because there isn't only one way. There is only one way. But we can all have a different relationship with Jesus. It doesn't, there's not only one way to have that relationship. And that's what, and people act like, oh, my way's the right way, or this or that, or blah, 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 blah. But, no, it doesn't really matter what you think. It doesn't really matter what I think. It doesn't really matter. It matters what is in their heart and their intent. And God knows that, and we don't. But yet we always like to judge, It's human nature. But it's something I try not to do. But like I said, I've always been attracted to the abnormal, the different, the anomalies, the rare. And I don't know why, but that's always attracted me. I've always been into the ghosts and the UAPs and UFOs, the aliens, the Sasquatch, conspiracies, and then just people that are different. People, because, and part of that too is like, I know what it's like to be rejected. And I don't really want other people to have to feel that. And so that's another reason I'm sure I've always, especially people, because I don't want anyone to have to go through that. But, wish in one hand, crap in the other, right? But, so I've always been attracted to that. So maybe that's why God brings them into my life. And I've always been attracted to, whoop, let's repeat that one. Whoop. But so I need to get back to that childlike faith. When the bills were all paid, the food was free. And really, it still is, if you give it all to God. Truly live for God. Pick up that cross and follow. Progress, not perfection. And the progress is in the pursuit. That's right. It's like, ask and you shall know. Knock and the door will open. And I can't remember the third one. Yeah. We'll have to look that one up. But it's like, yeah, you knock and the door opens, but then there's another door behind that one. And you ask and you're given the truth, but then there's another truth behind that one, and then another truth behind that one. And so you've got to keep knocking. You've got to keep asking. There's always room for improvement. Sometimes it's like God's trying to heal me, but I keep getting in the way of it. With my big brain and knowing everything and not having faith. But it's not a one-time knock. It's not a one-time ask. It's not a one-time seek and you shall find. That's what the third one was. You got to keep seeking. You got to keep asking. You got to keep knocking. And we got to get out of our own way. Whew. All right, so what we got here for today, our Bible verse of the day, Matthew 18:3. Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And is it that childlike faith? There's no worries. Well, you know, I had my worries, but not when I was alone out in the woods, just me and the dog. Good times, good times. But you got to have that childlike faith, or whatever. Unless you change and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Childlike faith isn't about being naive. It's about trust, surrender, and being present. The same faith that carried you through your head injury is the faith that carries us through life today. Our warrior wisdom: control is an illusion, trust is a choice. True strength isn't found in your grip on the world, but in loosening your grip and letting God steer. And just for today, for my sobriety warriors, just for today, I will not get in the way of my own healing. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones where you step aside and let God fight for you. Just got to have faith. Ooh, come on, bright sun. All right, our question of the day: what's one door you've been afraid to knock on again because you think you've already gotten your answer? Well, that's the other thing. I was listening to this gentleman the other day about asking God for things we want, not necessarily things we need. And I like his analogy of, you know, like it's like when his kids would come ask him for ice cream or something. Like, yeah, they don't always need it, but he enjoyed that, you know, that they would come ask him. But it doesn't mean he was always going to just say yes. Sometimes God says no, whether we like it or not, right? Like that's just how it works. And so a lot of times he says no because he knows it'll get me in trouble, or he knows I'm not ready for it, or whatever the case may be. And so it doesn't mean you can't ask again. Just don't be surprised if he says no again. So our challenge of the day: let's do one thing today without trying to control the outcome. We'll act in faith, plant the seed, make the call, speak the truth, then let it go. Our gardening tip of the day: so if you're saving seeds, remember cool, dry, and dark. The 3 keys to long storage life. Mason jars with a little rice or silica packet keep them viable for years. Which, I got me some nice, got some fresh seeds off my Minnesota midget. Got a ton of seeds off that one, and my, what is that, my sugar baby watermelon. Got some seeds, so I'm hoping next year they'll grow back better. Tomatoes, peppers, got some eggplant, squash coming up. This is stuff in the greenhouse that the cows didn't eat. But, you know, the apple tree and the blackberries and the grapes all came back pretty good, but I'm not going to get any harvest till next year, so and that's okay. But they definitely look stronger. So, all right, our prep tip of the day. So, a 2-layer food plan. You got short-term and long-term. So know your long-term foods and your forever foods, they call some of them, like honey. Your freeze-drieds are usually good for up to 25 years. You're dehydrated. They can go longer, but that's the average if they're freeze-dried and vacuum-sealed. And then your short-term, like rice, beans, and canned goods, you know, you usually get a couple years out of those. So, you know, be aware and know. This day in history, August 16th, 1977, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, passed away at Graceland. Always makes me think of my sister that's no longer with us. Even kings of the world fade, eternity doesn't. Invest in what lasts. All right, and then our joke of the day. And why did the math book look so sad? Because it had too many problems. Oh, I'm gonna go cry now. Breaking my heart, math book. All right. So that was a good little talk, I guess. I don't know. Me just jambling, mambling on. Jamble, bamble. So, but whatever. Hopefully you got my message. Hopefully you got the point. See the point. Yee. All right, so a little closing here. Faith isn't about arriving. It's about pursuing, knocking, asking, and seeking. It's about walking into the next room even when you don't know what's behind the door. Don't fear the weird ones. Well, some of them you probably should fear. Use your discernment, okay? Don't fear the weird ones. Don't fear the unknown. The progress is in the pursuit. And leave room for that, because sometimes some of the weirdest people I've met in my life are some of the most compassionate and most understanding. And yeah, so a lot of times you're like, oh, you look funny, or oh, you're this, or oh, this, that, or like, or oh, you walk funny, or oh, you talk funny, or and it's because they know what it's like to be rejected. And some of them are just hateful, and because they're not living by the golden rule, and everyone's treated them like crap, so they're just going around treating everyone else like crap. You know, a lot of like, and that's weird people. Now, if you want to talk about normal people, I'll just keep my opinions to myself. You know, you normies aren't so normal. Well, actually, they are. But then you get off their high horse, right? Not that I have a problem with their high horse. I just, you know, it's the saying. Get off your pedestal. I do too, though, you know. So, whatever. I like my mantra for the day. Classic, one of my faves. Progress, not perfection. And I added the progress is in the pursuit. Because I think I made that one. I doubt it. I don't make anything up. I'm sure someone else has thought of it. But I like it regardless. Whoever made it up, I heard it from myself. Or God or whoever. But I like it. And I like them both. Progress, not perfection. That's I got from AA. And then message I got was the progress is in the pursuit. And that's because if I'm not picking up that cross and following after Jesus, I'm not going to make any progress. And like I said, so and there it's a door behind a door behind a door. It's a truth behind a truth behind a truth. And so I have to keep seeking, I have to keep asking, and I have to keep knocking. And I have to use my discernment. But that's me, okay? You do you. I'm just sharing me here, okay? And so let's do a closing prayer here. Deep breath. All right. Father, thank you for bringing me back when I should have been gone. Thank you for teaching me that faith is not about control, but about surrender. Give me strength today to trust you like a child, to knock on the next door, to keep seeking, to keep asking, and to not get in the way of the healing you are working in me. And help me use my discernment. Help me to be aware, Father, I ask. And Father, I ask you, use me as an instrument to carry out your will. And help me lay down myself that only gets in the way. And help me to be the Richard you want me to be, Father, and not the Richard I want to be. And yeah, forever and ever, in earth as it is on heaven, give to us our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the glory and the power, forever and ever. Amen. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Much love. God bless. Let your light shine. Be the change you want to see. Peace out. Till tomorrow.